What is genocide? Legally, it is described in the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, which tells us, quote, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. A. Killing members of the group. B. Causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. C. Deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. D. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. E. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. The Convention does not mention complete extermination. It does not mention Nazis nor gas chambers. And it does not mention special intent. These things are not intrinsic to genocide. Being focused on criminal acts, the Convention reflects the concept of genocide, but it does not describe its nature. This has allowed a vacuum into which people have poured their prejudices in order to demonize those they hate and wash clean the blood from the hands of those they support. The Convention defines genocide in legal terms, but it does not define it in terms of meaning. This has made the concept and the law vulnerable to political power and manipulation. The way we discuss genocide is fraught with double standards. People who know nothing about the concept are often the keenest to police its usage. They proclaim, as Piers Morgan recently did, that it is not technically a genocide unless 1 million people die. Yet we accept as uncontroversial the finding that Australia committed genocide when it took Aboriginal and so-called mixed-race children from their families. In contrast, it is desperately controversial to suggest that the 76-year-long, coordinated, multifaceted, unrelenting, and often savagely violent program by Zionists to cleanse Palestinians from the land of Palestine is genocidal. So to understand the law, we need to ask, what is genocide? Raphael Lemkin created the word and the idea. He was a lawyer, but most importantly, he was a driven humanitarian. Ethnically Polish and Jewish, he grew up in what is now Western Ukraine. From a young age, he developed a deep abhorrence for mass violence against people because of their identity. Pogroms against Jews, historical instances of persecution and massacres of Christians, and the horrors of the Armenian genocide, which happened when he was 15, all shaped him profoundly. In 1939, Lemkin was forced into a grueling and dangerous flight when Germany invaded Poland, leaving behind his life as a prosecutor in Warsaw. When safe, he devoted himself to trying to understand the unprecedented brutality unleashed on the world at that time. He came to realize that violence against people because of their group identity, which he had previously termed barbarism, was not in fact distinct from the destruction of the cultural, social, and political institutions of that group, which he had previously termed vandalism. Combining these two concepts, he coined the term genocide and said it denoted, quote, a coordinated plan of different actions aiming at the destruction of essential foundations of the life of national groups. End quote. If there was one sentence that Lemkin wrote that captures best the meaning of the genocide, it is that genocide is war directed against subjects and civilians, not against sovereigns and armies. The key word is war, and Lemkin made it clear that he knew that those who commit genocide do so as a form of warfare. He wrote that, quote, the Germans prepared, waged, and continued a war not merely against states and their armies, but against peoples. For the German occupying authorities, war thus appears to offer the most appropriate occasion for carrying out their policy of genocide. Genocide can sometimes occur in other forms, but it is almost always portrayed by the perpetrators as armed conflict. Genocide is a policy. It is a strategy. Violent hatred is less a cause of genocide than it is a consequence of it. The dehumanization and demonization of the victim group is a top-down process. that seeks to shape the minds of ordinary men and women who then carry out acts of violence so that they see all members of the victim group as a threat and as a target. The key to getting people to commit acts of genocide is not getting them to hate, it is getting them to believe that their genocidal violence is an act of warfare, an act of defense. IDF soldier Guy Zakin was a bulldozer driver who testified that he had, quote, run over terrorists dead and alive in the hundreds, end quote. Why does he call them terrorists? In the context, it is not a meaningful descriptive term. These people who were cruelly mangled to death or in death would mostly have been non-combatants if there were truly hundreds of them. The word terrorists has no meaning here at all, other than to make the victims sound dangerous and worthy of extermination. Genocide makes even small children a threat. As an ordinary Zionist recently put it, quote, by the time they are 6, they are already radicalized. They are the terrorists of the future. Genocide is a coordinated plan, a process, a strategy, a policy. But really, what is genocide? It is what the victims experience that truly defines what genocide is. Genocide unleashes the violence of murder, rape, and torture. It unleashes the aggression of those who glory in destroying heritage, community, culture, family, and home. More than that, though, it prevents any possibility of appeal to the human traits of mercy, compassion, or even simple empathy. It turns perpetrators into implacable machines, unmoved by the tears of those whose homes are demolished, unconcerned by their own acts of murder, unreachable by the grief of a parent cradling their dead child, inured to the suffering of those shot, crushed, or burned, untouched by the pleas of those who do not want to die, happy to destroy food needed by starving people, callous in the face of inhuman living conditions that spawn disease, indifferent to the terror of a people living under the ever-present threats of and unending loss, and able to look at the people who endure that relentless terror of bombing, missiles, shelling, and drones and call those people terrorists. What is genocide? There is no better answer than it is what is happening now in Gaza.